cool. I don't know how to really start this because obviously when you come up with the intro, but yo guys, welcome back.
Which podcast? Which episode is this?
Welcome back to the world's most inconsistent podcast. I am your host, 6 foot plus of pure athletic, God-gifted talent, Masood, and I'm joined with Mohsin. Just Mohsin. What are you saying, man? You right?
Yeah, I'm good. It's good to restart the podcast for the 50th time. But we're back.
Do you want to tell the people the real reason why we stopped or the corporate reason?
The real reason, I think.
The real reason.
Everybody likes the unfiltered stuff. When Masood was very insistent on keeping the podcast running, that's the only reason he ever calls me. He's like, Mohsin, we need to do the podcast. But obviously that's not been happening purely because I think personally it was myself that made that decision. We needed to pause the podcast for a little while. There was a lot happening in business. There's a lot of things that needed to be fixed. And quite frankly, the main part of our business is the meal prep and quality of the meals. And we felt as if we could be doing much, much better. So we thought we'd take a break, put all our focus and efforts behind developing new meals, perfecting them, improving them. And that's what we did. I think we're in a much better place than we were a few months ago. We're not near perfection, and I don't think we'll ever hit perfection. But there's always room for improvement. But I think that break was much needed. What do you think, Masood?
How do you feel about the process that we've improved on so far? Because I know, it was probably in middle of this year we were thinking and at this point we didn't really record anything for a couple of months, and I was adamant on starting the podcast back up. What do you think? How do you think we've improved from that moment onto now? Do you think it's night and day, or do you think there's still room for improvement?
You've asked the wrong person a question. I'm never happy with anything, so there's always room for improvement, 100%. Do I think we've got any more improvement to do? 100%.
Yeah.
Are we in a better place we were than a few months ago? I think so, definitely. I think one of the main reasons was focus. A podcast, for many people sitting, watching this podcast, they might think, it's a very, right here, we've got our, video staff behind the camera. We've got Juliana sitting here. It's not just one person that's sitting here. There's 4 or 5 people sitting behind the podcast trying to get things done. And I think it was more about focus. I just wanted everybody to focus on fixing, making sure we were able to. So we went from, at that time, I think we were changing meals every month. To now we went to changing every 2 weeks, which obviously means, taking new pictures, editing pictures, just coming up with new meals, coming up with, consistency.
The schedule is hectic right now.
Yeah, so it was a lot to do. And I think right now we've managed to fix a lot of those problems.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot more improvements to do. We're always looking at the customer feedback that we're getting.
That's one thing, sorry, Koyo, but that's one thing I think people kind of overlook, that customer feedback is it takes time to implement change, especially, I can't imagine how long it takes time to implement change on a massive business. You have these massive businesses that have massive issues. It takes longer to turn that ship. For us, we're a small business. The turn will be quicker, but it still takes time to acknowledge it. It still takes time to check through it. It still takes time to understand where we went wrong and then to implement the change. For example, the biggest feedback that we got over the last few months was the inconsistency of the tasting of our meals. So we made sure okay, what is it exactly that's going on? We went to the drawing board many times and understood okay, this meal tastes nice when we're testing it, but clearly when we expand it by however meals we're making, the taste kind of gets lost in the process. So we had to kind of figure that out and kind of make sure the processes were in place to make sure there was consistency in our process in our work. And I think just touching off the back of what you said, I think we've definitely made some strides, and I'm glad that the podcast is back because man, I've been gunning for it's just people, I realize people just want something to listen to, especially if it can benefit them in their lives, even remotely, they just want something to listen to. And I feel a lot of people have been asking for a return of this podcast. So yeah, man, just
to add to your point about implementing feedback, and I agree with you 100%. It's generally, the feeling of feedback generally is people are a lot quick to leave negative feedback versus positive feedback. And generally our customer base is very busy, so not a lot of people get the chance to leave reviews. So obviously we generally do customer, surveys. We will call up customers, see how they're doing, and we are getting very good feedback. But we must take, obviously, the bad feedback we get into consideration very, very quickly and to steer that. Because, for example, we've had issues with consistency. We might have had issues with some of our rice. Just testing the different types of rice.
The rice is bad, man.
Getting the rice, getting the right brand of rice, making sure it's cooked in a different way. Because when you're cooking in a commercial setting, I think a lot of people don't understand, it's how Khana prep, to what standard is being held to. The aim of Khana prep was always to help people in the fitness journey, and it was always to help them, lose weight or gain weight or muscle growth or, fat loss, whatever the case may be. And the meals were always, they're never going to be meals, ever going to be meals like that you're going to get in for example, in a restaurant.
Yeah.
It's never going to be the case. So trying to balance the expectation of this is a meal prep business that's cooked here, it's cooked in mass, it's shipped across the country to dozens of different cities around the UK, and it's going through the batching of the courier service, it's going through the batching of the it's going to people's houses, and we're sending a parcel and it's ending up in a certain way. It's being held by depots. I think this a few weeks ago, we had maybe a good dozen parcels that were held by a depot, which meant the entire dispatch went to ruins.
Especially this time of the year in Christmas, like there's Royal Mail have had like numerous issues. There was a video I was seeing online the other day where the whole warehouse was filled with unshipped parcels. So, and then we're not trying to make excuses, but this is the reality of the matter. Like, we do our best from our point of view to give people the best service that we can provide. 100%. When the meal leaves our kitchen, it's in the best situation that we can put it out. Like, we don't purposely sabotage meals. Like, that's no benefit to us, and there's no benefit to anyone else. But it's how it's received to the customer, and an overwhelming majority of people have a positive experience with Khana prep. It's just these. Like you mentioned it to me like a couple of years ago. It's like when you make one mistake. If you make one mistake out of 100 people, you could say it's a really good ratio. But if you times that 100 by now 1,000, that one mistake becomes 10.
100%. And
then that 10 could become 100. That 100 could become 1,000. The bigger you grow. So it's about managing people's expectations. We're trying our best to deliver a solid product, and I know you mentioned that it's not restaurant quality, but we're trying to make it as close to a refined,
100%,
nice tasting, good tasting meal as possible, while it being convenient, while it being at your service or on the go. But there's always going to be some issues along the way, you know what I mean, that we just can't control of. But yeah, man, cool. Now that whole spiel is out the way, you know what I mean? Let's get to the
No, but it's good to, just to reiterate, good the podcast is back. I think we've got
100%.
a much better, back-end team right now. Everybody's more excited to have this, podcast back. And I think we're going to be able to, the podcast is mainly going to be revolved around myself and yourself. And obviously we're going to be having the occasional guest speakers.
We've got guests coming soon, man. I'm excited.
We've been told that by a lot of people that our podcast alone are going to, people like to watch them, and obviously we're not specialists in what we talk about. We're not, in any shape. There's a thing that's important to explain in these podcasts. Obviously, I'm a businessman, you're a business person.
It's our experiences.
It's our experiences, and we're not saying we're a specialist. If people find benefit in what we say, then we're glad that it benefits them. And if they disagree, then we also would like to hear that disagreement and check in the comments, and let's pick that up the next time we talk.
Cool, man. I guess the main topic of discussion on today would be. There's a few, but I wanted to talk about particularly something that I've been affected with personally is loneliness in business, and just loneliness. We could talk about it from a business point of view. It can also be implemented from a fitness standpoint and maybe a relationship standpoint, or whatever the case may be. But particularly from a business standpoint, I think loneliness in business is severely overlooked and severely underrated. I think. Especially when you're trying to build something of value and build something of greatness, whatever it is, you're gonna come across a long period in that journey where it's just you're gonna be looking at your day and be like, bro, this is just not making any sense. You know what I mean? Like, do you ever feel like that? Like, this is just not making any sense to me right now.
100%. I think. Even if you kind of zoom out of the conversation of business, fitness, anything generally, I think whenever you're trying to become master anything, when you're trying to master, let's say business, you're trying to master sports, you're trying to master fitness, whatever the case may be, it is a big part the big part of that is your mental health, and it's also your ability to stand alone and get on with it. Because a lot of people will say to you, let's say you're doing fitness, let's say you're doing business, and I can talk about this from experience because I've dealt with businesses and I've grown businesses from scratch, and I've also done a fitness journey. You know, in the previous podcast we talked about, you know, how we lost 30, 40 kilo. I kid you not, every time I was trying to lose weight, I'd be like, oh, you know, live your life, man. Why don't you just go live your life? Just eat this, or come on, just eat this. And it's like, I've got a target to achieve, or it's business. So it is a very lonely journey, especially mentally, because even when things are going bad for you, you are responsible for your own end result.
Yeah.
And that's extremely important.
You're responsible for your own actions.
Your own actions.
That's a harsh truth.
Exactly.
That's a harsh truth.
You wake up in the morning, you know, you're not picking up the phone to somebody say, listen, I'm not coming in today. You're picking up the phone. Essentially, you're ringing the phone on one side, and then you're also picking up the phone on the other side saying, well, I'm not coming in today. And then you're talking to yourself saying, actually, do you know what, mate? You don't come in, you're flopping.
Yeah.
And then you're picking up the phone to yourself, actually, do you know what, I'm feeling not good today. And then you're talking to yourself on the other receiver saying, actually, if you don't,
it's that voice
you're
in your
sabotaging
head.
yourself.
It's that voice in your head, isn't it?
That's it.
You know, the biggest learning curve that I felt of as of late is I remember when I wasn't really doing much of my life, and everyone has that voice in their head. And the voice in the head always tell me, bro, you know what, just want it, just like, you know, just chill in bed, like you can sack off the morning, you know, you don't need to go into work. And I remember I used to be the worst employee, I swear to God. I don't know how businesses hired me as a person to be responsible for them, but I was like, legit, like I'll be like, oh yeah, I'll be working really good for 1 week and be like, you know what? I deserve a day off, you know what I mean?
But I tell you what,
call up and be like, bro,
I'll tell you that, the same businesses would, if they saw you today, they would be dying to have you. Because that type of mindset, it's the fact that you were able to come out of that mindset. You know, some people never come out of that mindset. Some people will always stay in that, you know, I can't be bothered, self-pity, self-concern, you know, I feel sorry for myself every day type of business. But when you're a business person, you don't have that choice. You've got to get up and you've got to take action. You've got to take responsibility of what you do on a daily basis.
Have you ever felt like that?
Oh, wow. Have I ever felt like that?
You feel like calling up, being like, not calling up, but like, you don't really need to call anyone, but you just feel like, you know what, I just can't be bothered today.
Do you know what? Especially people who know me, it happens to me more often than people think it does.
Really?
Many times I'm like, do you know what, this is a tough day today, or you know, I really can't be, you know, I really don't have the energy for this. But it's that thing in your mind that what I feel like distinguishes one person from another is your ability to have a problem in your mind and then to overcome it instantly. And you just cannot feel self-pity for yourself. You cannot be like, do you know what, today I'm going to take a day off. Now, I'm not talking about day off in terms of not have a break. That's not what I'm talking about. Is when you've got to do things, you cannot hide away from your problems. You cannot hide away from the thing that you're scared of that day. You don't know, many times you've called me and say, Mohsin, you know, today is going to be a very difficult dispatch. And I'm like, look, thanks for letting me know about the problem, but we'll fix this problem. Everything's fixable. You just got to get your head around and be like, okay, what's the problem? Let's identify this issue. What we can do to fix it. Where can we get the help from? What support do we need?
There's always a solution to a problem. That's one thing I've learned. I remember like many times when we first started Khana, the first couple of weeks or when we moved into the commercial space, it was so overwhelming because like I've never been in a commercial space before. I've always worked in domestic setup, and when we started Khana Prep, it was a domestic project for a long time, since its inception. And then when we all of a sudden moved to a massive commercial space, alhamdulillah, it was a shock to the system for me because I was like, you were asking me for the answers, and I'm like, Prof, like I don't know how to answer these questions because it's like I've never been in this situation. And along with that, along with coming into that space, it was very overwhelming. It was very uncomfortable, and there was a lot of times where we almost didn't make it because of the lack of experience, lack of whatever the case may be.
But I think that lack of experience is what makes you the business person. You know, entrepreneurship, business, right? One of the biggest things, it's about risk taking. And as a business person, you're willing to take a risk on something that you don't know with the hope that you're going to gain the experience and actually get better. And business, what is business? Like when people ask me, like, Mohsin, what is business? I'm like, it's a series of mistakes. And your development in business is fixing the mistakes and actually improving on them. No, you can't name me a single business, right, that's going to come into the market and that's not going to make mistakes. It's your ability to fix those mistakes. Your ability to come, like I said in the beginning, our Khana Prep is not perfect, right? If you look at reviews, we've got more positive reviews than negative reviews, but we have some negative reviews. For me, those negative reviews are the worst because for me, it's like, me and you always had this argument. You're like, but we're getting really, really good reviews, and I'm like, well, we've got some negative reviews. And for me, I don't really care about the positive reviews. What I do really care about is about the negative reviews. I need to understand, okay, where is my business going wrong? Where is our business going wrong? What can we do to improve this next product? And that requires consistency. That's a daily thing. I could receive 50 positive reviews and I get one negative review. That one negative review will drive my mind into overmind. Okay, why did this customer not get a good experience? Why was this customer upset? What did we do wrong? How many other customers are feeling the same way? And you know how I get when we get a negative review into the business. And
you're not going to hear the end of it. Let's just say that.
But the thing is, that's what's going to get us to the next level. That's why in 6 months down the line, 8 months down the line, a year down the line, that's when the customers are going to know, actually, I spoke to them, they fixed my problem.
You know what it is? It's funny that you say that because a customer, I think, left a review today and said they've definitely improved from the last time I've used them. So it goes to show that people are initially tasting us and being like, I'm not too sure about them. And then thank you for them, first of all, for giving us another chance. And upon giving us another chance, they've realized, they've made a lot of improvements from when I initially spoke to them. But I want to touch on a thing that you've said about risk taking. I've got a hot take, and I think it's a bit of a No, I don't think it's controversial. But again, let me just say, and then let's see. I don't think this whole idea of risk taking. I don't think any human being on planet Earth likes to take risks, including entrepreneurs. There's a whole notion of entrepreneurs. I remember being taught in school, if you're gonna be a businessman, you have to like taking risks. Upon doing business for a number of years, my personal experience is my stance on taking risks has not changed. I don't like them, but I feel like the difference between an entrepreneur taking risks and a normal person but a person who's not an entrepreneur taking risks is the fact that we're willing to take the risks. I feel like normal people say entrepreneurs like taking risks. It's like we look at our day and be like, how many risks can I take today? It's like, how many risks can I take? Like, can I take 20 risks today, 30 risks today? It's not that. It's like in a particular situation and there's no other option, we will make a calculated decision on a topic.
100. That's the key word. I was just going to get to it, but you're just taking the words out of my mouth.
Yeah.
That's the word. Calculated.
A calculated decision.
A business person, a part of business, right? And that's what makes a business a very lonely journey. Because when you're a director of the company, like me and you are here, the director of the company, the decision lies with you. Everybody will feed you in this risk management. They will say to you, okay, do you know what? Well, these are the things to take into consideration. And the next person will say, well, these are the things to take into consideration. Ultimately, when a push comes to shove, you're sitting there at the end of the day saying, okay, thanks for letting me know, but this decision lies on my neck. I need to make that decision. And the thing is calculated. If you're a business person and just making decisions just like that,
blind decision, it's not like that.
Hands up. I've done plenty of those.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something. I still suffer from anxiety in business for that reason.
Yeah.
Listen to the people around you. Take advice from people. Speak to people, and that's why we have around, we've got Juliana sitting back here today. She's heading the social media. It's her. I'm not gonna go and make a social media judgment without Juliana saying to us, look, listen. Do you know what? This is what I think we need to do. This is what we need to portray. This is what we need to speak. And she is the lead on this, right? This is where you need to take the feedback and that risk management from people and take that, absorb that information, and then ultimately make that decision. Sometimes you've got to say, actually, I'm not making this decision. You make this decision. Because as a business person, you have to realize you're not an expert. You're not the expert. You
put experts around you.
One difference between a business person and other people is a business person has to think like an accountant, like a marketing person, like a social media person, like a finance. Your mind needs to be able to think 360 all the time. But very really, you might be an expert in one or two of these areas. You will never be an expert in all of these areas, but you will have a good understanding on all these departments. So when I'm sitting in a meeting, I'm not just looking at it from a business perspective, you're looking at it from all the different perspectives. And that's very important. Calculated risk, mitigating your risk, understanding what the data is showing, that is extremely important. And that's what makes business really lonely. Because at the push comes to shove, whatever somebody says to you, at the end of the day, you're sitting there at the end of the day on your own, when everybody is switched off, your mind is working 24/7 thinking, what am I going to do tomorrow? What's going to be the decision day after? What's going to happen? What's going to happen in 6 months? Okay, this is going to be a quiet season for us. This is going to get busy. This is not going to get busy. The economic situation has changed. This has happened. That has happened. And all of those factors are just whirling around your mind.
And not to also put into the equation that for most entrepreneurs, it's their only source of income. So not only do they have like all these massive decisions that they need to make on a daily basis, they also have to make a calculated understanding that okay, if this goes wrong, I could like lose my source of income. Like I mean, like I could not pay the bills. Like it's not like it's fair enough. You got to make a big decision as a manager in a company where okay, you get it wrong a few times. It would be annoying, but you still would get let off, and you still have that safety net of a check coming in every single month. But be an entrepreneur, you'd make a couple wrong decisions in a month. That could sabotage your whole business. You know what I mean? And you know the issue is that some decisions take longer to see. The outcome of them will take longer to see. Like you might make a decision. You might make a series of decisions at the start of the year, and then midway through the year, you're like, "Where the hell? What's going on?" And then you don't realize, "Oh, was it the decision I made yesterday, or was it the decision I made 7 months ago?" You know what I mean? You don't know. So that's another issue. So I think that's my hot take. I feel like everyone in the world has this. I feel like everyone in the world has the same fear of taking risks. I feel like just being an entrepreneur, we don't like taking risks as much as the next person. It's just we have to make a calculated decision. It's like there's still a chance that when we make this decision, it can go wrong. But just based on everything that we've heard in the day or all the evidence that we've gathered, this is the best case scenario for this particular decision, and that's why we're going to make it. And it's not like we want to. I mean, I'm speaking for myself. It's not like I want to always be in that position because it's anxiety, right? You're anxious. Like, what the hell's going to happen if I make the wrong call? Like, everyone thinks like that.
Sure.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, 100%. I think the anxiety of making decisions in business is very, very burdensome.
Yeah.
Like, even sometimes you make all these changes and then you still get, a backlash from a customer and you think, okay, what have I done wrong this time? What could I have done to improve this?
Yeah.
And some people think that, as a business person, you're sitting there just trying to make people's life miserable. I don't know, why did you do this? Why did you do that? Like, I'll give you a classic example. The Khana prep, our boxes, very often the feedback we get, boxes are coming soggy, right?
Now, boxes and the food boxes.
Now, people think that we've sent the boxes out purposely like that. Our boxes, we've consciously made a decision with the business that we're going to send environmentally friendly boxes out, which means they're made out of certain material. We send those boxes out. But now many things happen in dispatch. Maybe the food will have some condensation in there. Maybe there will be in delivery the couriers will maybe squash another box on top of it. It will pick up the box. The box will leak. Whatever the case is, maybe sometimes so many times different things happen, and customers will get really upset that Khana Prep did this. But when we look at it from this perspective, we're trying everything we can to make sure the customer is getting the best possible product. It's a risk you have to take, and as a business person, you just have to learn how to adapt and learn how to basically make those decisions better and quicker and faster, so the customer is not feeling the pain. This is not the first business that I'm involved in. I've involved in many businesses, in growing business, in developing businesses. That's what I like to do, and that's what I enjoy doing. Every business brings a new problem. Khana Prep brings its own problems on the table, and we have to make sure that the customer feedback that we're getting it, adjusting it quickly. And sometimes, like you said, it does take time for those things to filter through to the customer. It takes time because some decisions are not overnight. Some decisions take time. There's planning. It requires to make a decision. There's so many decisions that we've got in the pipeline right now, which I don't want to give too much away, but which we've been discussing in the back end, which will get filtered in the next few weeks, months, with the cases. And now, it is an anxious decision for us to make, but we're going to make it regardless because that's the feedback that we're getting.
It's also the case. It's also, I feel like there's another misconception of like you need to make. I remember this question is a bit like got a backstory because I remember I was watching The Apprentice a couple years ago, and Low Sugar does this thing where I think the first challenge. I don't know if he does it now or he did do it at a time. He's like, okay, this is your first task. Who wants to be the PM? And I remember there was one episode where it was the very first task when everyone meets everyone together. They split up into teams, and this is the first like boardroom setting. And he said to he said to everyone, he's like, so you guys, who wants to be? This is your first task. Who wants to be the PM? And without discussion, someone said me. Like straight away, as soon as he finished the sentence of who wants to be PM, someone said me, like I'll be PM, without any consideration of anyone else. And everyone in the room, the mood was like, oh wow, this person's got like some balls on him because they who's gonna make that decision? Like you're gonna lead 26 people that you don't know onto the first task. But I feel like that decision is a people have this notion where business people like making quick decisions like that. I feel like there's some decisions it's okay to take a day or two in reflection. You know what I mean? And I give that example because that person ended up getting sacked on the first task because she led the task and then she ended up getting sacked and fired from the show because she made an absolute abysmal priority of everyone. But it just goes to show that you don't have to take impulsive decisions on every call. Like it's okay to take a couple of hours, there's many times when we're having when we're trying to make a big call for the company and we're like and I'm like and yourself is like, okay, why don't we recoup tomorrow, let me sleep on it, let me understand exactly the pros and cons, because there could be a big opportunity where it could be life changing for the business, or there could be a big issue that we need to sort out and we need to deal with it in a particular manner where it doesn't require for impulsive behavior.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
I think, but it comes back to what the word that we used earlier, and it's calculated, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just calculating those risks in advance and thinking about them, and just sometimes, even though there's a big problem, sometimes you have to delay fixing that problem because you don't want to create another problem.
Yeah.
It's not that easy. Like for example, let's talk about Khana prep. Let's say there's a meal that's not working quite right. You could be like, okay, we're going to change this for next dispatch. But the thing is, sometimes it's not the best decision to make. Sometimes you have to run the meal that's not 100% perfect to understand, okay, this is the problem, and I need to shift to this problem. But is it going to fix the problem? Or is it going to create another problem? Is it are the flavors going to work in the same way? Is the meal when it gets dispatched, is it going to work the same way? Is it going to be cooked in the same way? Because I think a lot of customers don't appreciate or don't understand that we make meals in the hundreds.
Yeah.
And it's to make sure that will you be able to remain that quality when you make one meal, when you're making 1,000 meals.
Yeah.
That scaling factor is not the same. A lot of things have to be taken into consideration, your facility. So a lot of things do change.
One thing I realized just on that point is when I'm making a recipe, and I'm using like a teaspoon of salt. This is the big thing. So when I'm making like a recipe and it requires, okay, now go times this recipe by like 15 kg or 30 kg or 50 kg or wherever it is, I'm like putting in like a cups of salt, because obviously when you compound the quantity of meat, you compound the quantity of ingredients. So if a teaspoon of salt is like now equivalent to like 3 cups of salt, I'm like, bro, this is a lot of salt, man. I'm thinking in my head like, is this like, am I double checking? Have I done the calculations correctly? Because when you multiply it by like 1,000 or you multiply it by like a few hundred, you're like, bloody hell, that's a lot of seasoning. You know what I mean? Like you're wondering, like, is it gonna come out to the right
factors are very important. No, very important. I think that is something that we've definitely improved in the last few months, and I think that's starting to show. And I think Khana prep customers generally have been very understanding. You know, most customers have been very, very understanding, and
they appreciate the fact that we're small. I think that's a good. And
I think they also appreciate the fact that we call them up. We're very honest. If we made a problem, made a mistake, hands up to them. Say, look, we made a mistake. This is how we're going to fix it. And we are always happy to fix the problems there and then. I don't want any person listening to this podcast or anything that, we are very, if there's a problem with our product, if there's a concern, we will deal with that concern. We're not going to just pass the buck on to anybody else. Whether the customer's after a positive review, like there's a positive review that came through, I think today or yesterday, the customer says that, they've given us a 5-star, but, they've given us some feedback that we can improve in. I'm going to ask somebody to give them a call and say, listen, can you call them that thing that they're talking about, even in the positive review that could do with improvement? I want to know what that is. Because I want to make sure that for the next person, that's going to be perfect. So that's extremely important.
Yeah, 100%, man. The I don't even know what I'm trying to say. I think we covered that topic. I think that we've like that whole loneliness in business and everything like that. It goes through in business, and not only that, but also I feel like in fitness as well.
100%. It is a very long journey, fitness. They say when you're training, there's nobody can take the food out of your mouth for you, and nobody can force you to go to the gym. It is a very, very hard struggle to go in and out of gyms on your own, to have that self-discipline.
The hardest thing I'm finding right now is starting back up. You know what I mean? I was in a massive fitness thing for a long time. And I think when we started the business, one or two things had to give way. It was either I gave way in the fitness journey or I gave way in the business, and I was not gonna give way.
I have to disagree with that. I have to disagree with that.
It was. Bro, I'm working like so many hours in the day. Like,
You see what you're talking about. Let me just let everybody know that this is when you're starting to feel sorry for yourself. This is when you don't do that. This is when you don't do that.
I'll fully hand up. I'm making excuses. Like, I'm coming up with any way possible not to go to the gym.
I think the point that you're trying to make, I think the point that Masood's trying to make, because I've been in the same position that you've been in.
Yeah.
There was a time I was very into fitness, and then, like you said, business happens, and then you think I have to choose between one of the two, and then what happens is your food goes out the window, your fitness goes out the window. It's not that, it's the exhaustion that comes with business.
Yeah.
It's not that you don't have the ability to eat clean. It's not that, because when you're on a good day trying to train and eat, what it requires from you is mental focus, and it requires that level of, it does require focus. Like, even now when I'm finishing my last few kgs off now, it does require a certain level of focus and a certain level of determination to do it, even on a good day. Now, and when your business and your mind is mentally exhausted, it's very easy to then say, do you know what, I cannot be bothered to have, I don't know what my macros are. It's very easy to be like, listen, I'm just going to go grab a burger. Because it's just the easier thing to do, is one less thing to think about. Because all day long you're thinking about decisions, and you're thinking about, here is another thing to think about. Same in training. Like, even on a good day to go to a gym, you think, oh, I have to get up, I have to change my clothes, I have to go to the gym, it's cold, I need to go into the gym. Right now it's freezing, okay, but then when you're doing business, it's like, do you know what? Technically, think about it. I've worked a lot. I'm tired. I need to go sleep.
Yeah.
So you kind of make excuses for yourself. But what happens over time? It goes from 1 week to 2 weeks to 3 weeks. After a month, you're thinking, do you know what? It's been a month. I'll start the next following month.
Yeah.
I've got business to do, and then the business continues. And then before you realize, you go on the scale, and it's only up by 1 kilo. You think, oh, what's 1 kilo? It's all water weight. It's not really fat, is it? It's just 1 kilo water weight. And then you go into another month goes past, and you think, okay, now the weight's gone up by 2-3 kilos. It's not that bad, you know. I've actually lost 20 kilos in the past. 3 kilos not going to be a problem, and then it goes on and on and on. And before you realize it, 8 months later, you're sitting on a scale and you're up by 20 kilos, and you've just lost all your gains, and you're mentally exhausted, and you're thinking to myself, why did I do that?
You know, the funny thing of that is I completely relate to that. I remember when we started Khana Prep last year, just over last year, and I was doing like crazy shifts, and this is when I was just like proper into my fitness journey. I think I was like 88 kg. And I was really liking the look of my body. I was like, you know, seeing like muscle definition and in my arms and everything like that. My face was like skinny and everything like that. I remember when I first started working in the business, I was doing like 10-hour days, 12-hour days. And I was eating like an absolute dog. I was like, it was meal prep business, and I was eating anything but meal prep. And then I was like, you know what? I've eaten like crap for like the last 3 weeks. I must have gained weight. I jumped on the scale, and I haven't gained weight. It's like 88, but it's like 88.4 or something like that. I'm like, all right, I mean, that's all right. I'm still in shape. So I kept on doing that for like 2-3 months, and I jumped on the scale back again, and I'm like, it's like 91. Like, you know, it's 3 kg. It's not that bad, and I still look good. Like, you know what I mean? I still fit into the clothes. Like, that's all right. And then I've sacked it off now. Now it's like I'm scared to go on the scale because I know I'm gonna see a different number. But it's like.
But the irony is, we're a meal prep company.
Yeah, that's the irony.
So obviously, this is a challenge to Masood. I'm gonna put a challenge on live on the podcast and that. Masood is going to use the Khana Prep meals to get back to where he is. And it's going to be very easy. I mean, I've actually refused to eat. I'm back on Khana Prep meals. I lost my first 25 kilos with Khana Prep meals. Then I took a break for a little while because I was just becoming exhausted. Now I'm back on them again, and I'm seeing my weight go down. I'm controlling my calories. I'm eating them again. I've got another 5-6 kilos to lose. And that's it, and then I'm done with my cut.
But you hit the nail on the head. It's not the fact that I can't eat the meals and I don't want to eat the meals. It's fact, when you've done a stupid shift, like I'm talking about, like it's like this is crazy. Like
18 hours.
18 hours, 20 hours daily, like 7 days a week. It's not like I'm not doing like on and off chance. I'm like consistently doing it. And then you're physically exhausted. Like all I want right now is 3 Snickers bars and a cup of coffee, and I just want to chill and watch football, and that's
it. Was that it? 3 Snickers bars and
I had 2 Snickers bars.
What about afterwards?
2 Snickers bars yesterday, bro.
What about afterwards? What comes after the Snickers bars?
Yeah, let's not talk about that. You know what I mean?
But I think Masood is Masood has what you mentioned again. Just going back to our previous point, that's the loneliness in business.
Yeah.
You know, when you're tired and you're exhausted, there's nobody to come tell you, say, Masood, here's your macros and here's your come. I'll take
I
you
need
to
a
the gym.
private chef.
And you're just thinking to yourself. You're just thinking to yourself, like, do you know what? It's easier. It's comforting. You know, it's comforting. You want to have a Snickers bar. You want to relax. And we as human beings have programmed ourselves in a way, and it's not the good thing. And I'm guilty of this a lot less now, but I was guilty of this in the past. We've programmed ourselves that every time we want comfort, we go to food.
Yeah.
Right? We've not really been like, whenever we want to go out and have an experience with friends, the key thing is, well, we need to go out and eat. Why does it always have to be food? Why? And that's a more of a psychological exercise that we need to develop. Why do we need to always connect comfort with food? Why can't it be, for example, with a book? Or why can't it be with like just a shower? Why can't it be with a walk? Why can't it be with just relaxing and sleeping? Why can't it be with having some fruit? Why can't it be with eating something healthy? Why is comfort always connected to disgusting food?
Good, doesn't it?
No, but does it feel good? Because now let me ask you the question. Once you've had that meal, that really nasty meal, how do you actually feel?
No,
you feel sluggish, you feel tired, you think I'm exhausted. It makes you even more tired.
You feel really bad after you did it.
eating.
Like, I'll say 5 minutes after, but that sensation that you're feeling during
And this is one thing I've struggled with in my weight loss journey when I've been trying to lose weight, is whenever you're going to meet friends, when you're going to see people, the comforting thing to do is always to eat food, and it has to be. It can't ever be healthy food. It has to be food that has lots of oil on it. It has to be something that's very, very disgusting. It has to be. It can never be, you know what, let's go eat and let's go have lean chicken or lean mince with something, with some vegetables. It's like, wow, where's the fun in that?
If you ever say, look, we're going to go out and eat lean chicken breast, I'm like, bro, I'm not hanging out with you, man.
You've already been complaining about that. Every time you chill, you don't eat.
No, but the thing with Mohsin, like these days he's like proper religious on his diet. Yeah? I'm like, now we want to chill. It's like, we're just doing nothing at home.
Yeah, but you need to find different ways, and I think that's a big part of. Again, this comes back to companionship, isn't it? If you have the right people around you in a fitness journey, it makes a big difference. If you have people around you who hold you to account, and say, listen, let's go out, and let's say you're on a diet, equally I'm on a diet, we both go out, we're both going to be conscious of the fact that you're not going to go eat, splash out 4,000 calories. You're going to be a bit more conscious. You're going to save your calories. You're going to go for a walk. You're going to eat something a bit more carefully. But if you've got one friend that's going on a bender every day 4,000 calories and you're on like a 16, 17, 800, 18, 900 calorie diet, it's hard to, again, this is where the loneliness comes into it. Because while that person is jamming down 4,000 calories in a burger, you're sat there with your plate, with a portion controlled plate, and you're feeling like, you know what, I could do with a bit of that burger. Yeah. So, yeah.
You know who's feeling lonely right now? Who? South Korea, bro. RIP, man. They got absolutely battered. You see that transition? Got absolutely bad yesterday. I feel sorry for them, man.
Brazil has. I've always loved the way Brazil plays football. I think it's very. It's almost like semi-artistic.
Artistic. They were so confident.
And the finesse in front of goal, just the ability to just play around in the box whenever they want to. I mean, did you see what's the guy's name? The one that's called Richarlison, or how do you say his name?
Richarlison.
That guy. He is he's in a World Cup, the last 16 match, sitting in this box and sitting there heading the ball like he's on FIFA Street or something. Yeah. I was like, what's that all about? Like, how do you do that? He's just mocking people.
My dad was watching the game with us, and he was surprised, saying that he's never seen a team like he's like this. Usually when you're playing international football, it's like the team's a bit, at least with England, it's like the team's a bit rigid, like in the sense of. Like, you have all these different players coming from, like, 10 different playing styles and 10 different managers and then, like, 10 different leagues, or, like, maybe the same league but different styles of play. And then when they come in together trying to play, it's almost, like, robotic.
Yes.
But with Brazil, for some reason, I swear these players play... It's like their part-time job is, like, playing in the league, and then their full-time job is playing international football. It's like... It's so fluid, the football.
What do you think? But don't you think that has something to play in the culture they have? For example, the culture in Brazil, right?
Yeah.
Even the kid is, very, very flamboyant, and they play a lot of beach football. Like that goal that he scored in one of that overhead kick that he scored in one of the games. Yeah. It reminded me of those classic, those beach ball. What's that word called? What's that word called? Are we good? Yeah. It reminds me of one of those classic. What's it called? Overhead. The beach. Those
beach balls.
Beach ball. You know they have the net in the between. Something beach tennis. Yeah, beach tennis. Something you'd think Ronaldinho would do on a daily basis, sitting there doing overhead kicks, and he just does that in the middle of the pitch. Like, how do you do that with his hand on the floor and just doing this 360?
Do you think England can win the World Cup?
Do I think they can? Look, I think England has this year definitely shown that they've got some really quality players in all formats of their on the pitch. Like, you know, they've got good strikers, they've got good midfielders, they've got, you know, defenders. I don't know about Maguire, but, you know, they've got good defenders by the cases. But I think they've had an easy ride up until now. They've got in the quarterfinals that they were playing France, and I think they're gonna definitely have to pull something out of the bag. They're gonna have to be more. They've got a very, again, this is my opinion. I'm no expert when it comes to football, but I definitely think that their ability in they're gonna have to change something in the game. They can't just keep. They don't take risks. You know, it's very straight football. There's no ability. There's no flexibility in their football. They don't change the style very quickly.
It's quite safe.
It's quite safe. There's always very defensive. There's not enough balls going into the box very often. When you're playing with somebody like France, they can be quiet the whole match, and the minute somebody makes a mistake, they will come and they will finish it off.
I think Rio Ferdinand says something. He was like, he said on his podcast, like, England will win the World Cup, and I'm like, well, if England do win the World Cup, then there would be no question that they would not deserve it. You know, like some World Cups, you're like thinking like, oh, but they won the World Cup, but they had an easy ride. Or they never faced this team in the final. I mean, if England do win the World Cup, genuinely speaking, they're gonna have to be in the form France team. They have to be either Portugal or Spain. They would need to either face either Argentina or Brazil in the final. Like these are like big teams, and all these teams have their big players still there. Like, I've seen Portugal's team, and I think apart from England's team, genuinely, I think Portugal have a devastating team. Like, they have like a world class player in every line. Like, they got either one world class defender, they got many world class midfielders, they got world class forwards. Like, I don't see any weaknesses in those teams, and I feel like in England, like, we've got the personnel. We've got the mentality. I like the fact that we got a young team and we're fearless. You can see
fast,
that fast and transitional.
But tell me something. Why does Rashford not start? Why have we got other people starting than Rashford?
You know what it is? Like, everyone says this, but I'm like, Gareth Southgate. He's the only England manager that's like been in this situation. He's got us to a semi-final in his first major tournament, a final in the Euros. He's the only person that has made like tongue-in-cheek decisions and has pulled it off. I remember like in the Euros when we faced Germany in the round of 16 and we beat them, everyone was like tongue-in-cheek of the selection that he did in that one. He's like, oh, I don't know about that. I can't remember what it was, but he played someone where it was like, I'm not really too sure. I think he played Trippier or something. He's like, I'm not really sure on that. And then we ended up beating them 2-0. So it's like, and even in the last game where we beat Senegal, Henderson was starting, and everyone in the country after Rashford scored that free kick and those 2 goals versus Wales, everyone was like, Rashford has to start, and he didn't start, but we won 3-0. You know what I mean? So it's like this guy's calling shots,
so
outside the box calls, and then and everyone's like, you know what?
So he's taking those business risks. He's taking those business risks.
He's taking those risks. He's taking business. He's taking risks, like, and he's and I don't know. I think you know what it is. I think outside the camp, like as a country, we're all like, bro, what how are they gonna stop Kylian Mbappe? How are they gonna deal with France and everything like that? And I think inside the camp of England, they're like, bro, bring it on, like you know what I mean? Like, I think there's such a level of confidence in that team. They're like, bring it on.
I think definitely against France, they're going to have to get more balls in the box. I don't think England, when they play, they get enough balls in the box, enough. Yeah. With France, they've got very good defenders, they've got a very good team, and they're very quick at picking up people's mistakes. You make a mistake against France, you're gone. Yeah. And I think they need to get more balls. Even the games I've seen, I think England could have scored more because they just don't get enough balls into the box. And I think that's very... For me, again, no special, this is what I saw. Sometimes when I watch England games, I get kind of bored. I don't know if that's the right word to use. I kind of like, this is getting a bit boring. Did you watch the game against USA?
Yeah, that was dead.
And I was like, what is going on? And I remember vividly you were there and you were like, listen, why did I come home? I'm going back.
Yeah, legit. I was like, I should just stay at work. This is a hot take. Do you think Jude Bellingham is a more exciting talent in the last 20 years since Zidane?
Oh, look, now we're getting disrespectful, isn't it? Like, Zidane was in a league in and of itself, right? I don't know enough about football to sit here and say, whether I see them the same. But for sure, what I have seen Bellingham do in games, he's fast, he's willing to take risks, he's nippy, he's willing to take those risks, willing to drop the shoulders when we move it in and out players. And I think that shows a lot about what he wants to do. I think he's 19 years old.
He's 19.
So if he's doing that.
He's 19. He's playing in the World Cup
and
quarterfinals.
he's showing up on the stage, so he's confident. And I think confidence, sometimes people go on a big stage and they get, they can't perform, and he has done that.
When I was 19, I was in university hating my life, and this guy's playing in the quarterfinals of the World Cup. So you know what I mean? Like, it's
No, kudos to them.
it's
Kudos
a
to them.
difference. But cool. I think we've covered a lot of topics in this first podcast.
Back a long time, yeah.
Back for a long time. World's most inconsistent podcast. I'm gonna keep that title until we start
Yeah,
getting consistent.
maybe we should call it the World Inconsistent, World's Inconsistent podcast.
Cool. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll say that again. You can tell I don't know what I'm doing right now, but we'll catch you in the next one. Any closing statements?
No, I think we've got some very exciting stuff coming up.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that we're going to be doing. And I'm not just saying that. I think genuinely we've got quite a few decisions that we're making that hopefully that's going to improve the customer journey. It's going to improve the customer experience. And yeah, just really looking forward to that. And just to everybody who has been, interacting with Khana Prep, big thank you. We really appreciate you guys giving us a chance, working with us. If you've had a very good experience, we really appreciate that. If you haven't had a great experience, then just let us know. Contact us. We will speak to you, and we promise you, work with us, and we will work with you to fix that problem, and we'll try our level best. And that's it. I think that's it from me, to be honest.
Cool. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
But